Opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers. Details.
Hello, everyone, and update. I'm Deborah Hutchison. Durham seen an unprecedented increase in demand throughout this pandemic, and they continue to struggle to meet the demand. The beef farmers of Durham region recently making an impressive donation to our area food banks. Joining Dale Mountjoy, he is president of the beef farmers of Durham region, and Emily is executive director of Settlement House. Both of you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So
thank you.
Let's start with you, Dale. Let's talk about this rather hefty donation, not in cash, but in food. And it was ground. How much ground beef did you donate?
It was approximately 800 pounds in total.
That is a lot. That's a lot of beef.
Yes.
How?
Amongst several food banks across Durham region.
So Emily, how much beef did you receive then?
So we originally received a donation of about, and then I believe there was an additional drop off that occurred. So 300 pounds that we received from Dale.
Incredible. So Dale, tell me, how did the group decide to make this hefty donation?
We knew that food banks was COVID era, so we thought we'd figure out what we could do to help, and ground beef is the most versatile way for beef to be distributed. Can go in any recipe type thing, so, and easily transported. So that's how we came up with ground beef. Contacted a whole lot of food banks. Some got back to us, some we had logistical reasons for not being able to connect, and those that were able to connect with us, we split it up amongst them.
So how many farmers are a part of your group, and how many in this endeavor?
So we have a group of about 10 of all of Durham beef producers. We're not lobbyists, but we're a nation that represents the beef farmers. And there's approximately 350 farmers that produce beef in some form or another in Durham region.
So Emily, your reaction, tell me your reaction when you found out about this donation that was coming your way.
Oh my goodness. Well, incredible gratitude. That's my initial reaction. I mean, it goes without saying that COVID-19, significant impacts on everyone. I believe everyone has been impacted, but especially the most vulnerable, those our food bank. We have seen an increase in the number of clients who are accessing our food banks in comparison to previous months or even previous years. We're up about 44% of clients, and there is so much demand, and I foresee that demand continuing to rise just because wave, and who knows what's coming our way. So receiving this donation was incredible, not only because we're feeling the strain of COVID-19 and the detrimental impacts of it, but also because ground beef, like Dale mentioned, out for item, and we're constantly looking for fresh meat, produce, dairy, those items that can be difficult to come by.
Now, when you think about food banks, so the first picture that comes to mind are shelves filled, foods in a can and long shelf life. Right. This doesn't have a long shelf life. So do you have then the freezers and the fridges that this donation?
Oh, absolutely. So thankfully, we received a generous donation last summer from Tammy Lee Hanlon and her colleagues over at Desjardins Insurance, and they provided us with a couple of freezers and fridges. Without those, we would not have been able to manage or accept the donation that came forward. And so it's incredible that we were able to support it, and now we're able to facilitate the distribution of the meat. And from a food safety point of view as well, we're able to maintain those meat products and keep them frozen and fresh and make sure that they are handed off in a safe way.
have taken too long before it was gone off your shelves
Yeah,
or
so
out of
we
your
are,
freezers.
yeah, we are moving through it. We have a little bit left, but we're also moving through it pretty quickly, I have to say. So between our, we also have a seniors hamper delivery program that's in place that has also benefited from this donation as well. So between the two of those, beef is moving pretty quickly.
And all the safety protocols and restrictions,
Mhm.
that has affected, I guess, the number of volunteers you can use and how you can move food out to people. How are you
Yes.
making that work?
We are creative and we're in a resilient bunch, I have to say. The team has really come together as a cohesive unit and they have found creative ways to think outside of the box. Like you said, from a COVID-19 safety point of view, we want to make sure that we're handing off items with distancing in place, but also in terms of, distributing, storing, kind of sorting through items that come in. That process has changed and it is ever evolving. And I am happy to share that we've had a few core volunteers who have continued to provide their support throughout the pandemic with COVID precautions in place. And it was actually one of our volunteers, Bonnie McDevitt, who facilitated the contact between Simcoe Hall Settlement House and Dale from the beef farmers of Durham region.
So Dale, did you receive a call then from someone asking, or did you guys start
No.
calling just the different food banks?
No, we came up with the concept and then we called a bunch of different food banks. Happened to be friends with Bonnie McDevitt, so I knew Simcoe Hall would be one of them. But yeah, no, we actually made attempts to contact, I believe at one point there were 18 food banks attempted to contact at least.
Mm-hmm. The logistics though of I guess getting this donation ready and delivering it, you didn't have much time once it was all ready and gathered. How did you make that work?
So one of our members had 2 animals that was ready for market, so they went. That takes a bit of time. Took 2 or 3 weeks at least. But once they're done and frozen, our smaller provincial plants. So a provincial plant can only sell meat that goes into the province. A federal plant like a Cargill that you may have heard of, it can sell meat across the country. Provincial plants were very, so they have very limited freezer capacity. So as soon as that was ready, we had to move. I received meat the day, got meat.
That's who got it. Well, let's talk about, Emily has explained to us how the pandemic has affected their operations. Let's talk about the beef farmers here in Durham region and how your operations have been affected.
Three main things that have affected it. The number one is the slaughter capacity. So not so much ground beef, but your Costco's or whatever, your steaks and your roasts and stewing meat. And there's a plant closure and
And we've heard of those too.
The Cargill closure around
Yeah.
Christmas. Well, that meat it's like being an athlete. They're getting it ready for a specific delivery date. And just like an athlete's getting ready for a specific race. When you miss that date, you miss your peak. And that was closed there around Christmas, the Cargill plant. Then there was a backlog of meat to be taken care of. So that's an issue in COVID. Whenever some kind of processing glitch hits, then that backs all the way up through the system of getting animals ready. Not only the ones that were supposed to go that day and maybe for the next 2 or 3 weeks, but the ones that were going to peak 2 weeks from now. So there's a real backlog to take care of there. And that has to do with labor and distancing and keep getting people vaccinated. And like I said, the provincial plants were already not enough of them. So people that wanted a half a beef, a quarter beef, or beef from like Buckingham Market in Oshawa, or beef from Harrington's, those are provincial plants. And they're already, before COVID, were at their limit of what they could handle. The backlog in the provincial plants I heard of along as 6 months to a year out when you can book an animal.
Wow, really? But
So,
then that means that, but that means the farmers then not only are they dealing with this delivery of moving their, the beef out, those animals for that extra time. Bottom line in so many ways.
Yeah, no, the Cargill plant for 2 years through Christmas and New Year's when it was closed, the provincial government did come up with a program to help pay for a bit of that if you qualified. Mainly if you had a booking that fell within that time for a semi truckload of steers, then you would maybe qualify for some assistance that way. But most of the time the farmers end up swallowing it themselves.
Yeah, and you can little afford to.
Correct.
Right.
That COVID has really affected us is services, bankers, insurance, government programs. Everyone's been working from home. Home, very heavy on the home, very light on the working. We find anything administrative that I'm trying to contact people that's not directly related, fertilizer, machinery parts.
Yeah.
That's been extremely difficult to get any of that kind of stuff. People are supposedly working from home, the backlog of getting that worked out. The third thing is, you and I talked about it earlier, broadband internet. They say it out here, and we had to make sure in order to do this interview that the kids weren't on a Zoom call for school and no one was playing an online game. We had to do all that kind of stuff in order to do this interview. That's the reality of rural internet.
Yeah. We only have about another couple minutes, guys. I want to bring the interview, Emily, back to you, and just the importance of community throughout this and how people have helped out people like Dale and the beef farmers of Durham region. Without their help, you wouldn't be feeding people.
No, you know what? We couldn't do it without all of the partners, support, community members, single person from, those who are dropping off food items, who are donating, such as Dale, who are providing creative solutions for storing and moving food in an efficient way while also adhering to calls. I mean, there is a role for everyone. And I think, we really wouldn't impact that we have made in the community without the support of community members and partners. And so we are so incredibly grateful for that, and we really do look to you as as co-partners in this process of trying to support vulnerable community members and to provide ongoing continuity as it continues to evolve.
And as you said, your client base is up 45%. A lot of those are families with young children and seniors.
Yes, many of them are. And we're seeing, such a diverse array of clients who are coming to access our food banks. So it's, it can be disheartening to see, but we're also very happy that we're here providing the service that's, necessary. And like you said, we're seeing children, we're seeing lone folks, we're seeing, large families now. We're starting to families with 8+ members, whether that's several children or multi-generational families as well. There is a dire need for food. And unfortunately, I don't see that need going away anytime soon. And so the best that we can do is contribute, to the overall change and try to provide those families with some sort of food security in any way that we can.
If people out there want to help, want to donate, how can they do it?
Of different ways. So you can donate through Canada Helps. That's the online website that you can go to directly. You can also drop off checks or come in if you would like. Give us a call beforehand so we can make sure that we have a process in place to ensure that we are distancing ourselves. And stay tuned. Keep kind of tabs on our social media sites. We have our Facebook and Instagram page that's constantly providing updates and different ways that community support.
Okay. And on that, we are out of time. Our thanks to Dale Mountjoy and Emily Whitlarge today. Stay with us. More to come on Local Update after the break.
I'm Deborah Hutchison, host of Local Update. The COVID pandemic plunged the world into a sea of uncertainty and upheaval. Closer to home, how are we coping? Join me each week as we speak with organizations and members of the community about how they're faring and how they're making a difference. Get the latest local updates and hear stories of resiliency and caring. After all, we're in. That's Local Update on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
And welcome back to Local Update. The Soper Creek Wildlife Rescue is Durham Region's only wildlife rehabilitation center and outdoor education facility. And no surprise, the pandemic has found them struggling to be able to afford equipment and supplies to keep sick, injured, and orphaned wildlife that ends up on their doorstep. Joining us now is Stephanie McEwen. Stephanie is founder and wildlife custodian. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So let's tell everybody how many animals every year.
Oh my goodness. Well, last year was our record-breaking year. Even with the pandemic, we took in over 2,000 animals. Right, just in our baby season, we're up over 300 and we're a month in. So I can only imagine what our numbers will be like this year.
And how do these animals end up coming to you?
Yeah, you know what? Every story is a little bit unique. Sometimes we actually travel out and do rescue missions. We actually did 2 beaver missions in the last week. Time it's the general public finding them out on their excursions in nature and bringing the animals into the wildlife center itself for treatment.
How bad are some of these animals?
You know what? Some pretty horrific things being done to animals. We've seen a lot of really bad hit by car situations as well. Most of the time, they're just baby animals that have been displaced from their nest, or maybe mom didn't come back. So those are the majority of the animals, but we've definitely seen some pretty bad things.
Yeah, on your Facebook site, really good pictures of some of the animals that you have taken in.
Yeah.
Like even the baby squirrels, how tiny are they?
We actually had a gentleman last week drop off 4 baby red squirrels, and they weighed in at 8. Yeah, I know, super tiny, the size of your thumb, and they were getting fed every single hour. But this morning when I weighed them, they actually were up to 29, quite a bit in the last little bit, which is fantastic.
Wow. So you're there, you live on Soper Creek, and you're caring for these animals. You have a family as well. How do you do that? All the midnight feedings and 2 a.m., 3 a.m. feedings.
I know there aren't enough hours in the day. I'm pretty lucky that I have a fantastic team of volunteers, a great staff, and my husband is now with us as well. So we're able to manage homeschooling the kids virtually, as well as feeding around the clock. If it wasn't for all these extra community and make our village successful, it wouldn't be possible.
And you know what, never mind the volunteers, let's talk money. There is a lot of cost involved in caring for these orphaned, sick.
There is. Lots of people don't really understand how much money it costs to be able to take in these animals with us for, a week or so. Even a baby squirrel is with us for 16 weeks. And we import all of the special squirrel formula specific for every species. So there's lots of costs just for a healthy, let alone those sick or injured animals that then require veterinary care, x-rays, specialty surgeries, or medication. So, we really the community to help us with the work that we do, as well as our programs, which have really been affected this year because of COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, basically the second year in a row. What programs and what type of things have you not been able to do in order to bring those funds in?
Had to cancel 90% of our programming. We're an outdoor education center, so all of our children's programming, all of our adult wellness programs that we run on the weekends have all been canceled 100%. And right now we're just relying on doing the community for donations.
Right. So you started recently a GoFundMe campaign to get that help. How can people donate? How can people find that?
Yeah, so right now we're doing a GoFundMe to help with incubators, and that's specifically because we've had so many baby animals come in that can't regulate their own temperature. They need those life support systems to be able to get the care that they need. It's a matter of offering them food. We have to be able to regulate that temperature. Help on our GoFundMe page, but there's also lots of other ways that people really can help, whether it's volunteering your time, going to our website. We actually have a household item list that people use every day that don't realize how important they are. So things like empty paper towel rolls, egg cartons, towels itself. There's so many things that are recyclables that we're able to use to help these animals get on the road to recovery.
Okay. How do they go about finding the GoFundMe?
Yeah,
page?
the GoFundMe is actually linked on our Facebook page, and there's also a link on our website as well.
And the website is?
www.sopercreekwildlife.com.
And easy to find you on Facebook. Just search Soper Creek
Soper
Wildlife Rescue.
Wildlife
Right?
will be the only one that pops up.
So ICU units, very costly.
Yes, they are. We have to actually ship those up from the States. There isn't a Canadian supplier. About $1,700 American plus all the freight to get them up. So it's about $2,000 American by the time you get everything all said and done.
Wow. So when else is said and done to raise?
We would love to be able to reach our goal of $15,000. Going to get us our 5 incubators along with the special attachments for oxygen, for the humidifiers as well, and that would give us 5 full complete units to be able to handle any type of not only baby animal but an animal that's suffering from head trauma as well.
So how long has Soper Creek Wildlife Rescue been in operation?
We actually opened our doors in March of 2016, so we just had our 5th anniversary.
Why did you do it? What led you to open up the rescue?
Honestly, I have been an avid animal advocate. I remember, feeding seagulls with my grandpa and just feeding, the chipmunks peanuts at our cottage. But it wasn't until my son, who was 3, and I was actually on maternity leave with my daughter at the time, he fell in love with this squirrel. And I couldn't understand why he loved this squirrel so much. And I asked him, we can go somewhere else. We can go see some pretty cool animals. And he said, no, I love this squirrel and you don't. And I really took that to heart because I had spent my entire life learning about animals and caring for exotic animals. And I really didn't have that appreciation for animals that you could find in your own backyard. I ended up quitting my job. We sold our house and we took a leap of faith and started Soper Creek so we could ignite passion in children for animals that you can find in your backyard that are really overlooked, but play such an important role to all of our well-being and to our ecosystem.
So throughout the years, come on, everybody has a favorite animal. Is there one that you've taken in that's really tugged at your heartstrings?
There are a number of animals that we have taken into the wild center. I'm going to be honest, we just took in a red-tailed hawk a number of weeks ago that was shocked and didn't really have the best prognosis of being able to be released. And yesterday, for the first time, she was standing using both feet. She's been eating fantastic, and she was able to go out to her outside recovery, and that milestone from where she came from. So that is, it's amazing what we were able to do with just a little bit of love from the community.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, you have been in our studio before.
Yeah,
when we could welcome you into our studio, right. and you brought in some really special animals. One was a skunk.
Yeah,
he was a sweet little skunk, and his story just.
I know, and that's the thing as well. So lots of, in addition to doing the work for wildlife rehabilitation, where those animals are going back into the wild, we have lots of animals, just over 100, that can't go back into the wild. They've been kept as someone's pet illegally, or maybe they've been rescued from pretty bad circumstances or born in captivity, so they can't go back to where they should be. And those are the animals that we were able to bring into the studio. Our skunk, super sweet little fellow. We have a porcupine, Vinny. His birthday was yesterday. He just turned 5. And these are the animals that people fall in love with and that track their story through our social media because they want to see where they came from and now how they're growing up and how they're doing.
Was it Vinny or was it the skunk you were telling us before? You had tried to release him back into the wild, and every time you left,
That's right. Yeah.
Was it Vinny or the skunk?
That was Edwin, our skunk. That's right. Yeah, they came in. There was 4 or 5 babies from Guelph, actually, that we had to drive all the way back out to the Arboretum. And it actually took us 2 days where Edwin wouldn't leave. He followed and chased after our van. So we had to get special clearance to be able to keep him as an ambassador, which doesn't happen very often because our goal is to release these animals back into the wild. And there's lots of protocols in place so they don't attach to you. But skunks are very social by nature, and unfortunately it happened to happen with the case of Edwin. So now he is happily living his life out here.
Oh, now how did you have to go about getting permission? How did you go about getting that permission?
Yeah, so we carry 4 different licenses. So what we have to do if there's extreme cases where an animal needs to stay and can't be sent off to another wildlife center, then we have to talk to the Resources and Forestry and get clearance from them first. And you know, it's a great safe because we don't want people to be thinking that these animals are okay to have as a pet. We want them to be into the wild. So it's a great, definitely a great safeguard to make sure that people aren't keeping these guys as pets.
When you're talking about Edwin, you said that they had come in from Guelph. Did somebody actually deliver this brood to you?
Yeah,
Guelph?
we actually accept animals from all over Ontario. It's not just Durham region. We've actually had 17 animals just yesterday dropped off from the Guelph Humane Society. So lots of places don't have wildlife rehabilitation centers because we don't get any government funding. There are only a handful of us for all of Ontario. And the need for wildlife care has really increased with people staying at home and spending more time in nature. They're filling up really, really quickly. So now people are driving all across Ontario to make sure that these animals get the care that they need.
That's a heavy responsibility on you and your.
It is. It is. And, you know, a lot of people have these large, have no choice but to accept the animals, but do as much as we have funding for. I would love to be able to take thousands and thousands of animals, but the reality is without having the community support, it's just not doable. So the more that we can get out there, the more that we can talk to the public, teach about coexisting with the animals and the importance of the work that we do of wildlife rehabilitation, the better it is for the animals, our community, and the more we're able to help those animals that really truly need to come into the wildlife center.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so I just want to remind people your website if they want to check you out.
It's www.sopercreekwildlife.com.
Okay, and there is a GoFundMe. You can just type in Soper Creek. Well, Stephanie McEwen, thanks so much for joining us. All the best.
No, thank you for having us again. It was great to see you.
Okay. Our thanks to everyone for joining us today on another edition of Local Update. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison. Stay safe, everyone.
Call the Rogers TV, email us, or connect with us on social media.
In Canada, only 1 in 5 children
who need mental health services receives them.
By age 40, about 50% of the population have
or have had a mental